So for one of my videos around the time hidden inventory was going crazy, I was talking about how right then it was the wildest time to be a fan of Jujutsu Kaisen because the anime and manga was going crazy. Flash forward to this week's episode and the madness is only continuing at arguably a crazier rate with some of the scenes in this episode. And of course, without getting into any spoilers, the manga is at its most crucial moment with the entire community going wild right now. It's a very exciting time to be a fan of this story, and after a damn long time, one of Gojo's most important episodes finally got animated, and it was insanity to say the least. Gege has been following that streak of greatness from hidden inventory, with of course the Mechamaru fight being adapted and looking insane. Yuji fighting the Grasshopper Bro, which although didn't look nearly as good as JJK's best episodes, was a really dope moment for my boy Yuji, as he got his first fight of many in this new arc and had one of the coldest moments bodying this curse to literal bits. And Gojo getting pulled up on by the disaster curses, specifically Jogo and Hanami, accompanied by Choso. From the time Gojo took off his blindfold and had this expression on his face, you already knew it was over for these curses. The last episode cut off right here, but that single frame told you everything you need to know about how these lot were gonna get dealt with. The cursed spirits were using domain amplification to essentially neutralize Gojo's technique and get a hit on him, but of course they are going up against Satoru Gojo, the pinnacle of strength, so obviously shit isn't gonna be that easy. Gojo was for real toying with them, and specifically Jogo breaking his arm effortlessly, and at this point I honestly feel bad for him. Jogo is actually the biggest victim in JJK. My man cannot escape getting absolutely bodied by anyone he comes across, which makes his character so tragic. Back in season 1 he was basically a tool to show us how broken Gojo is, and he held basically every attack Gojo had in his arsenal, from the Limitless to Red and even his damn domain expansion. And now a whole season later he is still getting destroyed. Gojo was putting the moves on both Hanami and Jogo while simultaneously trying to limit how many civilians die, and at a certain point in the fight, Gojo just decided to turn off his Limitless and go all out on these lots, starting with Hanami. Hanami escaped Gojo a couple times now, once back in season 1 after the Jogo fight, and again after Gojo used Holo Purple in the Kyoto Goodwill event, so this was the third time he came across him, which just pissed this man Gojo off. I feel like at this point in the fight, Gojo just went insane. His mind was gone during this part, and after he latched onto Hanami and pulled the 2 weeds straight out of his forehead, bro decided to become a Dragon Ball Z character for a second and destroyed Hanami, and I mean that literally, with just raw output of his curse energy, which ended up vaporizing him. Mappa cooked so damn hard right here and put their all into showing how busted Gojo is. The way Jogo was trying to distract Gojo by aiming at civilians will always kill me, because Gojo just didn't give any care in the world right there. Just like the narrator says, he's not like Yuji and is logical about these situations where civilians crammed in a small space like this will unfortunately face some casualties. Jogo underestimated the lengths Gojo was willing to take to exercise him and his buddies, and that small turn with Gojo saying next will always be insane to me, even though I've of course seen this content way back when in the manga. Gojo has always been a cool character and has his moments from time to time, more notably in the last arc where he was toying with everyone but Toji, and even back in season 1 with of course him throwing Sukuna around and that Holo Purple scene at the end of the Kyoto Goodwill arc. But it seems like for this encounter with the cursed spirits and basically everyone jumping Gojo, Gege wanted to take a different approach and show how cold this man Gojo is. We all know he's the pinnacle of strength in JJK, but this is where he actually showcased that and really went crazy. This episode had a Hall of Famer performance from Gojo, and unsurprisingly his feats only got more ridiculous as the episode went on. Jogo was asking the question of, is there anything this man can't do, which aside from being some fourth wall breaking stuff, since I was thinking the exact same thing when watching, actually had some truth behind it. The situations with the civilians crowding Gojo and the cursed spirits was already bad enough, causing multiple deaths left, right and center, but of course this man Mahito had to come through and make shit 10 times worse, because that's what you do when you're the most evil character in the story. Bringing a train filled to the brim with transfigured humans, once again leaving Gojo in a pickle that is basically impossible to deal with. Impossible unless you are someone like Gojo, and following what Jogo said about what can't this man do, this man Gojo pulls off a miracle with a 0.2 second domain that both rendered the cursed spirits unable to react and allowed the civilians to come out basically not brain dead from the overflow of information, allowing him to take out every single transfigured human Mahito came with in under 5 minutes, a feat that can only be performed by someone like Gojo, the strongest sorcerer of the modern time. You see, Gojo had to worry about not crushing the civilians between his domain and the barrier placed near, making sure the innocent people in his domain don't get brain damage from the after effects, and having enough time to kill off all the transfigured humans whilst all the curses are stunned from his domain. All this was a concern, and from pure instinct he managed to pull it off. To this day, this is the most ridiculous feat that I've seen from the story of JJK. When you consider all that Gojo had to deal with and the fact that he had the skill to perform a 0.2 second domain, it becomes such an insane moment. Wildest shit ever, and what happens next is another big moment for my guy Gojo and the most important part of the episode. The main goal that these cursed spirits was working towards with the Ghetto fake as the mastermind was the sealing of Satoru Gojo with the prison realm. This is something that goes all the way back to the first season where we first see these cursed spirits, and through causing this Shibuya madness, the plan was in action. Get this broken guy Satoru Gojo the hell away, as the future plans cannot go through with someone as powerful as Gojo walking around. So sealing him away where he can't intervene with anything was the only possible option, and just like Gojo doing some miracles in this battle, sealing him was on that same tier of impossible. Everything needed to be damn near pitch perfect for this to actually happen, and every cursed spirit could have easily gotten wiped out like Hanami trying to make this work. It was that difficult of a task because you needed to catch Gojo in his most vulnerable state for it to work. This is where the fake Ghetto came through and created this vulnerability that led to Gojo's downfall. Gojo just got done with his domain feat, and without a moment's rest the fake Ghetto pulls up and Gojo finally gets overwhelmed and the sealing begins. The way Gojo gets sealed right here is honestly one of my favorite moments in this arc. Despite how peak it is for the Jujutsu sorcerers, the moment was just incredible. Gojo getting surprised by the person closest to him that was supposed to be dead completely mashed Gojo's brain. Ghetto is the most important person to Gojo and is the one who made him question his own identity, so him being the catalyst for Gojo's downfall and that one thing that catches him off guard despite everything the cursed spirits tried was so good. Even though it was GG for Gojo at this point because the sealing process had started, his main concern was the person right in front of him, not the situation he was dealing with. The person acting as Ghetto is not actually him and is someone else entirely, which caused Gojo's entire soul to reject him despite his brain thinking otherwise. This is where we find out why Ghetto is back with stitches on his head as he pulls the string, unveiling the mastermind to be a literal brain. This damn brain is the person pulling the strings behind basically every major event that's happened up till now. But after this short introduction, Gojo is then sealed and the cursed spirits take the W despite losing in pretty much every regard before this. A damn good episode we was treated to this week, covering some of my favorite content in JJK. A really big step up from the last episode, which I know was a controversial one within the community, but something I only really saw as build up for this current episode. Last week they moved some things around, like for example Yuji versus the Grasshopper is a fight that takes place in the middle of the Gojo beef, so them moving it towards the start was a really good decision because the episode today was entirely dedicated to Gojo only. Animation and directing was far better this week than last. There was a ton of Sakuga in this week's episode and certain scenes like Gojo vaporizing Hanami actually left me dumbfounded. I knew Mappa was gonna cook, but they took it to the next level here, and the directing in this moment and Gojo sealing was so fire. The ghosting and dimming wasn't as jarring in this episode and there was barely any of it, to be honest. Only part I can recall is the domain moment that had quite a few blurry shots, but this episode overall was real good. Only part I prefer in the manga compared to the anime is the domain expansion feat, because I can't put it in good words, but Gege makes Gojo look so damn raw in these few panels. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got for this episode. It seems like we are getting the big moments in the JJK anime and manga simultaneously, and as someone who's keeping up with both, I could not be happier / sadder. It's exciting times for JJK and the Shibuya arc is kicking off strong, which is really dope to see. Of course, if you guys enjoyed today's vid, I would greatly appreciate a like and subscribe for more content on JJK and other anime and manga. Thank you guys again, and I'll catch you in my next one. Peace.